Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon. It's me, Sulaiman Ben Swari, coming back on Facebook Live. Today is the 27th of May, 2022. The time is just gone 7 minutes past 2 in the afternoon in Birmingham, England. Let me share this video, then we can start the program. Okay, thank you very much. Today, as we say, is Friday. Juma Mubarak to all of you. And we start the program. And the program would be around to discuss the government white paper on the TRRC recommendations. We'll start at looking at the purpose, the objectives, in order to understand what we're discussing. There's a lot of reaction. There are a lot of reaction. There are jubilant reactions. And later on, we have seen a lot of skepticism about the paper or emphasis on the need for the implementation, to guarantee that there will be implementations. And we all know that those are very valid points made because of the history of this government and coming out with white papers. We think of the purpose, the objectives. Why the white paper? Why is it important to us? And what does it mean? What do we want from it? What's the end game here? This is the thing we should think of first. And when we think of this importance of this white paper, there cannot be anything more important in the affairs of the state more than this white paper. Why that is so? It's because of what it represents. It represents the issue why we have a government. It represents government, the reason why we have a government itself. And as we needed government in order to administrate a sovereign nation, we needed a good government in order to administrate a progressive, sustainable nation. Now, if this document is that important, that should tell us then how much interest we should put into this document. Because this document represents to try to address the failings of governance, good governance. I know the scope is for the 22 years, to investigate the 22 years, but by investigating the 22 years, whether we realize it or not, we have investigated what led us. I know it has not been dealt with in detail, but anyone with common sense can tell you that what led us, there's something that led us to 20 years of dictatorship. Then this is, in a sense, should represent diagnosing the country itself and its problems for the past since we regained our independence. This document should help us to understand our feelings and then to be ready to position ourselves to move on, to ensure these things will not happen again, and to live as a progressive people in a progressive nation. That's why we need a transition, and that transition has failed. And the reason for the failure of the transition, that's why people are skeptical that this document will be delivered, will be implemented. That's why it's very important to think about this. The rebuilding of the nation cannot be done without dealing with the recommendations in this document, white paper. But it doesn't finish there. There's so much more to do. But as I always say, we work with what we get. At least we have to start from somewhere. We cannot just start to complain or just stay on complaining. We have to look at what we have in front of us and take that and work with that and move and to develop that further down. We'll talk about the procedures, processes, and so on. But we move on to the reasons. What really contained in this document? The victims. And when we say victims, collectively Gambia as a nation was a victim of this dictatorship. But we have people who are direct victims. Families which are direct victims of the system. But entirely, the nation was a victim of the system. Then we should understand that the same way we had direct victims, but entirely the nation was a victim, we should understand then the dictatorship was enabled entirely by a nation, but directly some people have direct responsibility, and some can be even said have most responsibility on forwarding this dictatorship. Just as we can recognize people who have directly stood to be counted to fight against the dictatorship from the beginning to the end. And most of them, some of them are not with us today. And the ones with us, they are the direct victims. Because the reason they were picked on mainly was because of they defied. They refused. They fought against the system. That's mainly the reason they became direct victims. Yes, we have seen people who became victims, who were enablers and became victims. Yes, they are still victims, but entirely with these victims you're talking about, Jammeh picked them because they fought against. Then the other important issue about this, that's why we talk about implementation, is impunity. If we continue, and we have seen an example of this, all the commissions of inquiry that have been carried on, or the lack of reforms that we had, have ensured we had impunity in that country, and we have seen the result of that impunity in corruption. This disregard of the Jammeh Commission or instituting any mechanism to fight corruption or advocate for fighting corruption or the government fighting corruption, what did it do? We have seen the level of corruption because of impunity. Because of the lack of reforms, we have seen still the brutality from the security sector, especially the police forces, the arm of the PIU. We have seen the unprofessionalism. We have seen the rate of accidents, all because of the lack of reforms, lack of professionalism, because of the impunity again. That impunity is quite important to be addressed, and it cannot be addressed if this document is not being implemented right. The other aspect is what they call, or what we call, the never again. The never again cannot just be a buzzword, cannot be just a mantra or slogan. It has to be real. We woke up this morning to see what is happening to the Kunkujang Mariama shrine, where the Catholic diocese, Christians, go to worship. For someone to have the audacity to go encroach onto that land, next to the complete, you can see the podium. Where is the respect for human rights? Where is the human dignity? Where is the inclusiveness? Who would buy a land of someone's, especially a communal land used for worship? We have to respect people. We have to respect people's religion. If we want to coexist, if we want peace, if we want freedoms, we have to make sure we guarantee other people's freedom. If we want peace, we have to guarantee other people's freedom. But we cannot expect to marginalize and to continue this corruption and expect peace in that country. Again, the failure of reforms, land reforms, the failure of the transition have ensured the continuity of this corruption and the abuse of human rights. This is abuse of human rights. People have right to property. People have right to exercise their religion. Now, if we stand by, minority citizens are targeted by criminals, then we are complicit in that criminality. We are complicit in that criminality. Where is the never again? You see, that's why Gambians who are skeptical are right to be skeptical. We have to find foundations. We cannot talk about building a home, building a house without those foundations. Those pillars have to be onto something. The investigations, the TRRC investigations or commissions were meant to do what? To find grounding, to see that the soil was fit for purpose. And whatever is lacking in the soil, we put in the soil to make sure we can put a foundation and put the pillars, and so that we can raise up that country up. That country cannot be raised up if we did not fix that soil, if we did not build the foundations, if we did not build the pillars that will carry that country. Then another thing we should think of about this never again is to think of whether this document is going to be implemented. And we have genuine reasons to think of that. Continued injustice in the country. We all know why we didn't have land reforms. Go and see how many properties Barrow have acquired. Go and see how many properties ministers have acquired. From the Minister of Lands, Minister of Drame, Ahmad Ba, and everybody else. Go and see how many properties the bourgeois have acquired. The businessmen have acquired. All these businessmen who are supporting this government. And others. But mainly those supporting the government. That's why we have this problem. We have seen the issue of Faraba. Did we address that? A commission paper, what came out of it? The police brutality, did we address that? From that then, how many police brutality have we seen? No, because they don't want the reforms. They don't want to reform the PIU. They want to use the PIU just as it was used during the dictatorship. They don't want to reform the Lands Act or anything that makes sure people are protected, because they want to encroach. They want to take on people's land and abuse people. Rights. Now we have to think of then the importance of this document. We think of it. This document is to guarantee our existence as a nation, as a sovereign nation, as a nation that is viable. The failure to implement this document, I will tell you, would pose a great national security risk. And I can tell you and guarantee you that this country will never be. I know we have neglected the Janneh Commission. We have neglected a lot of reforms. Yes. And we are paying for that. And this document, what it did is to take everything else. And the most important is human freedoms and rights. I don't want to take it away. But I can tell you there's no nation that will progress without freedoms of the people. It's a matter of time. The most progressive nations are nations that people have their freedoms. All those freedoms to worship, all those freedoms to associate, all those freedoms to exercise their rights, all those freedoms to think, to innovate, are bound by one thing, is the fundamental freedoms of human rights. Fundamental freedoms of human rights. And this is what the document is talking about. Then if we don't address the victims, if we don't address the situation of the victims, if we continue the impunity, we will never again, it's just a slogan. Let's move on and think of the narrative, the Gambian narrative versus the others. I know people turn around to say, oh, but South Africa, but Rwanda, and they are lying. They bring in examples that are lies. And these people will be called intellectuals. And we should not be surprised. I know we keep on, as Gambians, just looking other way. Because the truth is very difficult for us to point out. But we know what enables this bad governance. The biggest enablers are the intellectuals. The soldiers are used as a tool, but the intellectuals are the biggest enablers before even the soldiers will come into the rank. Because they will lie, they will manufacture the lie, they will entrench the lie in order for the situation to progress. That lie is about dividing us. To make it possible, that lie is about distracting us to concentrate on issues that are not important, to concentrate on our differences rather than to concentrate on our strength, to build on that? No, that's what they do. And then the system would be entrenched. We have seen how they undermine the Jawara government with their lies. They came and did that support for Jammeh, and now we have seen it with Barrow. And if you don't confront these fraudulent intellectuals or so-called intellectuals, we will perish. And this has been the problem of Africa, because we have intellectuals who are silent. They might mean well, they might know well, but where are they? Mostly, who do we see in politics are these dodgy so-called intellectuals. Who do we see fighting in public space? It's these dodgy so-called intellectuals dividing us further down in order to make it possible. But I'll tell you one thing. The Gambian narrative is a completely different narrative from what happened in South Africa. The Gambian narrative is completely different from what happened in Rwanda. Gambian narrative is completely different from what happened in Liberia and Sierra Leone. The Gambian narrative have similarity to most of these countries or these situations I have counted in. But we have a different narrative. Our narrative, I am not making it simple, but it's easier to resolve than the other narratives. In our narrative, we are interrelated. There's no country in this universe that is more interrelated than Gambia. We are a small nation, but that smallness should be a strength, not a weakness. We don't have barriers. What we term as barriers are our strength, because that discourse has been had before, and we had covenants onto that discourse. And that's what we call this tribal jokes or relationship that we developed. It is not only frowned upon, but it was sweared. Our ancestors swear against that. That a Pulufuta or Futanka, whatever narrative of this thing, should never harm a Kabunka again. Should never touch a Kabunka again. Just as a Kabunka should never harm a Pulufuta again. That was the agreement. What we fought against today is something the two people have hold in as most sacred thing is the faith of Islam. Who today are more Islamic than the Kabunkas? Who today are the most Islamic than the Kabunkas? Tell me. And who today can say that without the input of the Fullers or the Futankas or whatever name you give them, would not have this happen? Why did we fought? It's about two things. It's not hate of a tribe. It was what? Ideology. And leadership, position, whatever you call it, land or whatever you call it. These are the two reasons. It was never hate for Mandinkas or Kabunkas. And the Kabunkas resist because of the belief and the faith they had before. But today, tell me a Kabunka who is really a Kabunka. They are all extremists. Then why should we see any difference again? That was our difference. And this Gambia we have today, the contemporary history of the Gambia should be a different Gambia. It's not based on our differences, but the strength we have. When we had our wars, when we had our differences and resolved the differences, we should progress. And as we progress, to say that we should not. We sign a covenant. And we should hold to the covenant. Just as a Fuller, they are not touch a Serer. A Serer, they are not touch a Fuller. A Fuller, they are not touch a Jola. A Jola, they are not touch a this. I can go and every other tribes have it with it. What is more? And this is enshrined in a belief. This is enshrined in a belief. I talked about the situation before. And that situation made me realize again how much we take that belief. a situation, a cousin of mine was married to a Syrian lady. And my cousin treated the Syrian lady very badly. But what I remembered, all my family members that said, they never quoted the Quran. They never quoted anything else. What they said that what is between Fulas and Syrian, my cousin is going to pay for that treatment that he treated the wife. They did not go and talk about any other human values or Islam or anything else. They went straight to what our ancestors believe. To say that because of the treatment that he treated the wife who happened to be a Syrian, that he would have to suffer for that. Now, what we have to think about is, let's talk about our Gambian narrative. As I said, we are not divided. But we are to be divided. If we continue in dishonest politics, if we continue to listen to this dishonest intellectual, if we continue to listen to this dishonest or react, at times we react, forgetting that Ben Sware that talks or call himself a Fuller or thinking that he's fighting for Fullers is lying. He's a liar. He doesn't believe what he's saying, and what he is doing it for is for money or position. We should not fall for that. Let's go and denounce Ben Sware. Let's expose Ben Sware, but not thinking that we can go and attack the Fullers because of Ben Sware have said something. Once we do that, they have achieved their aim. That's what they want. That's what they want. And we label each other. The source of the River Gambia itself, as we see, or that's divided the Gambia into South and North, it's not even true. If we understand our history, because of that River Gambia became the Gambia we are. Go and look at the tributaries of the river. Go and see the communities that settle in both sides of the river, how they interrelated and how, what their relationships are. Go to any region in the Gambia and see the people who settle, what relationship do they have, how they intermarry. Go to Fuladu and see and tell me which household in Fuladu did not have mixed marriages. Go and look at the family of Musa Molo today. They are more Mandinkas than Fullers. Go and see the family of Musa Molo. They are more of Mandinka than Fullers today because of the intermarriage. And that goes for every other tribe. Go and look at the Sarahules. That every other tribe. But when it comes to our politics, it's divisive. We are not together. And that's why this document is important to diagnose. Why is the narrative different? As I said, Gambia is, let me leave that. Let me go to countries that we might not understand, that they lie to us about. In South Africa, it was an apartheid regime. Whites against the blacks. Whites imperialists supported by imperialists in England and other Western powers. To suppress, to take all the resources of that country. To the extent of making a law that completely marginalized based on color and shades of color. That was what that prevailed. That did not prevail in the Gambia. What prevailed in the Gambia was the group of criminals that enabled to take up a system to disregard our constitution and to govern by degree and to be enabled to maneuver around to bring up another constitution in order, and even readopted that constitution to serve a purpose of a dictatorship. And we've lived in that dictatorship and used within our systems to enable to keep that dictatorship. Then it was a system. Then we can identify, in this case, we can identify people according to their responsibilities and hold them accountable to their responsibilities. In South Africa, it was a nation taken over by other nations and using color of that nations to represent their interests. But see it here. whoever think that the South African transition is something to look at and cherish or these things should see the realities of South Africa. Tell me that apartheid is out of South Africa. Tell me whether apartheid is outside of Africa. Tell me whether South African citizens have changed. Black as South Africans, tell me if they have changed. Their condition, situation have changed. Tell me. We all have seen what happened there a year ago. Or we keep on seeing the fire splashing all the time. They're going out to attack their fellow citizens, fellow Africans that stood with them and fought with them. Because still they have that mindset of slavery, that mindset of being under an apartheid regime. The ANC came and represented what the white South African represented. They did not change. If the transition was right, if the TRRC, whatever, reconciliation was right, today South Africa would have been different. But white people are still privileged, and what they did is to invite a few black people from the ANC to be under the same privilege. And the black South Africans are still suffering the same way they suffered under apartheid. They don't have to tell you you don't have right to come here, but that your economic condition would tell you that you don't have right to come here. That's how they do it. That's the same appetite they have. Look at whether they have education reforms. None. Look at whether they have land reforms. None. Look at the priority of their development. Have that changed? Go and look if they still don't have those shanty towns and everything else, inclusive zones for rich people. What is the life expectancy of South African compared to white South African? These are the things that we should think of. We should don't take the buzzwords that South Africa is. Did South Africa continue to progress? Did it continue to progress? Let's move on. We talk of Rwanda. Whoever said that Rwanda did not prosecute is a liar. Go and Google it yourself. Whoever said that Rwanda did not prosecute. Rwanda even did worse than prosecution. They went targeting. They went targeting their rivals, which we are not advocating. We are not advocating for that. Up to today, they are targeting. They are going to South Africa to assassinate people in South Africa that they thought they held responsible. We are not asking for that. We are asking for justice. They had different forms. In fact, at certain level, they did something progressive. Because it was a complete ethnic. It was a civil war. Which started a long ago. It wasn't addressed. It wasn't addressed. Again, I don't have time. We could have tell you how it originated from colonialism. How to control them, how they use them. Again, the most important part is how did they use tribe to build political parties? How did they use tribe to identify politics? This thing continued to boil. The Hutus and the Tutsis and other these things. And it was not only, people keep on talking about Rwanda. It was not only Rwanda. Burundi was affected the same. And Rwanda, Burundi were all under the same protectorate with the Belgians, the French, and others. Now that's what we can learn from that. But what they did was because of the amount, almost everybody was involved. They cannot. And what they have to do was one thing, create a local, traditional justice for the average person. Who completes average? But the most responsible, the architects, they went after. They were tried. Up to today, they fought using the universal jurisdiction laws to try some people in France, try some people in Belgium, try some people in United Kingdom. They are kidnapping people and taking them back to try them. We are not asking for that in lawlessness. We asked him for justice to be used. Some people might say for that measure have brought what stability and the effectiveness of the government they have today. Some people might relate to that. Let's come to Liberia. Liberia, very similar to what happened in Rwanda. Yes, I know because of Rwanda was so shocking, everything happened with a short span. Yes, because small nations that will happen. Small span. Liberia, it went on for years. A lot of people dead. But the conflict keep on moving from one to another. From what it was originally, end up to be a civil war against different tribes, different interests. And mainly for resources. And the country was created, demarcated in an aspect to serve again the interests of colonial. And that interest, that colonial again influenced the system of governance. From the Americo-Liberian, running these things in to have separated people from indigenous Liberian or other native Liberian to Americo-Liberian and different class of citizens. And the corruption and the lack of unity within this people. It was easy. The injustice continued to what they end up having. The war. But I'll tell you, the entire leadership of Liberia was complicit in the war. From Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, they were all part of Charles Taylor's group, the Americo-Liberians, and because Ellen Johnson Sirleaf was kind of a half-half, and triple in fact, because he intermarried and married a Mandingo. You see, that's where the Sirleaf come from. But she's Americo-Liberian, but the mother is not an Americo-Liberian. The husband was not Americo-Liberian. But all these groups later started the war. They were part of the rebellion. And every other person who happened to be influential in Liberia today was part of the war. Now the country became factions of different factions. And the only thing, way they could have resolved things was to compromise. Because different factions. To the extent of the people like Prince Johnson that killed people life on this thing, tortured people life, end up become a senator. A senator. You think we should look at that, say that this is our example? Reconciliation? Is that reconciliation? No. Because these people still have power. They are not liberated. They have to compromise. They have to compromise to share. And until they are liberated, the country will not move forward. That's why Liberia is the way it is. The mineral resources that Liberia have. If it was true that they were liberated, if it was true that they have democracy, for almost now 15 to 20 years, Liberia would have been different. But no. Whoever becomes president at this moment would be in the mercy of the revolving factions. The most eligible dual candidates who are not tainted with the rebellion, who are clean of the rebellion, who are representing these things would not be given the opportunity. That's why in order for George Weah to become president, have to take the wife of Charles Taylor. Just imagine that. The wife of Charles Taylor to be a running mate in order to be president. Because he ran for twice. He cannot. They have to copy him. That's why today he's just a symbolic president. Now the same people that created whatever the war was, controlled the war, are still controlling that country. You think that those country people will give you justice? You think that those people would bring you anything meaningful? South Africa, Liberia is not resolved. Then we cannot look at Liberia. If they to prosecute, the president would not have been a president. Ellen Johnson should have been prosecuted. Most of those people that were with her or still in the system would have been prosecuted. They would not prosecute each other. They are serving as senators and other things in that country. You think that is sensible? That is something Gambians should look at. When we look at that, it's something to say, this is what we don't want. But nobody to point out that we have to have reconciliation. In that sense, I'll talk about the reconciliation we expected. It's not in that sense. Sierra Leone, we became something very similar, something similar to Liberia, and they did something little bit different. And that's why you can see the little bit of progress they have, little bit. Because they had their, whatever system they have, but they have their special courts. Go and look at it. They have the special courts, special tribunals of Sierra Leone. And those special courts, even a Gambian was part of the judges. Djibouti. They tried people who were most, and some of them were part of the government. Why did Sierra Leone able to do that? Because of the people that took over power, Ahmad Kaba, from Ahmad Kaba and others. They were not part of the war. They were ever been Republicans. They were ever been Democrats. The only time they become part of the war was when they were in government and defending the government. You see, a completely different scenario. A completely different scenario. They managed to do something. And that's why today they still have their judicial systems are working, their institutions are working, not perfect. Because still now, you have that former soldier who is there now corrupt to the core and now starting to trying to undo some of the things. Things that he was against the corruption now is going to, that's why I say we have to be very careful about this corruption. That's what we change things. Then if we understand that we are unique, what does it tell us? We have the potential to bring about change. We have the potentials to move forward. We have the potential to learn from our differences. We have potential to learn from our past. We have the potential then to, if we understand, to learn from our differences and settle those differences, we can move forward. But in order to move forward, we should always remember that we have forces among us that are continuing trying to undermine us. They have forces among us who are just out for their lifestyle. They don't care about what happened to the country. Or they are so ignorant, in fact, they don't know what is likely to happen to the country because for what they do. I take it as ignorant. I don't think some of them are that bad in them or they have that bad heart for Gambia. No. It's just because of their ignorance, they take these worldly things, the material things so much. They are so much into want to be elites or want elites in the sense of being corrupt, part of a corrupt cabal and build big houses and have a lifestyle. So much they don't know that this is not sustainable. If we continue to do with this country will be in flames. And if it is in flames, we are not going to enjoy that life. We'll end up being refugees or die. And our families will die. They don't know that. That's why they take it as, oh, you have to be part of it. It's just politics. You know politics, you have to be part of government. You have to be part of this. And you disregard whatever government do. That's the mistake we did in the First Republic that brought us the dictatorship. And people who went into the dictatorship to enable the dictatorship have seen that. What it gave us. Now today we want to continue. Did we not learn? Did we not learn from our mistakes? We have to condone. That's what we had, the good intentions we had from the Jawara government all evaporated, end up being corruption and all. It's always the mother of corruption. We have the business elites controlling things and controlling influences, dividing us our own tribes and regions. This is what we should learn from. We have gone runners by now owning media houses. Those media houses spoiling their rubbish into us, and we are calling those people journalists, trying to defend those journalists. What journalism in them? Remember what the role journalists played in Rwanda. Know the role journalists played in South Africa. Know the role journalists played in Liberia and other countries. I am talking about the so-called or bad people. No, there are clique of journalists, good journalists that are doing everything possible. Those are the people we should listen to. Not people who just want a lifestyle. Not people just who want a lifestyle. Creating political parties, creating everything in order just to confuse people. When they don't mean what they say. Then we should hold people and accept them for who they show us they are. Not what they tell us. We should hold people for who they show us they are, not what they tell us. Let's just move on to another point here. We have to appreciate and understand the geopolitics. Where we stand today as Gambia, we should be very careful. We keep on expecting rescue, rescue, rescue. There is no nation that would always survive that I will borrow, or so a rescue will come. Then you should not be a sovereign nation. Just give yourself up then to be colonized. Go back to colonization. But if we believe we are a sovereign nation, we should have sustainable ways and means to live as a sovereign nation, to be a viable nation. But in the way and manner we are going, and if we fail to implement these reforms, implement this transition, this white paper, I will tell you, Gambia will be in flames. Gambia will be in flames. And there will be no rescue this time around. Let's look at the realities. Let's look at the geopolitics. The fragility of this state, we know it. The fragility of Gambia now, we know it. The lack of reforms and the entrenchment agenda of Barrow led us where we are. The reforms gone, constitution no more, everything else is still as it is. We are not out of the woods. Security sector reforms are not done. We still have economic with us. We know then the state is fragile. Let's move on to look at whatever surrounds us. Ivory Coast is a matter of months or couple of years. Ivory Coast is either going into flames or they do something now to make sure they have a succession plan and to work. But the way Ivory Coast is not safe. It's fragile. They have an almost 80-year-old who is ill and is not putting anything in plan. Every other day they have a new prime minister. Trying to negotiate everything else to sustain a cabal. A cabal. He is not even himself. He is controlled. He is controlled by a cabal, influenced by friends to maintain their interests. That's what they're doing. Nigeria is not stable. It's a matter of years, couple of years probably. If there's something not done drastic, the country would implode. We all know about all the incidents we hear from the south, the north, and everything else. All sort of banditry. Not even insurgents movements, but banditry are able to take over airports, controlling airports, taking over military barracks. That's the level they are. But not only that, a country that we have 80-year-old men, mainly, continue to be controlled by a corporate corrupt Nigeria, a country that have the potential to be a world superpower. They have the human resource, both home and abroad. They have the mineral wealth. They have the population size. They have the land size. They have any other ingredient that you need. They have the savanna land. They have the rainforest. Anything. They have the marine resources. They have the oceans. They have mineral resources. They are innovative, but leadership. They have 80-year-old cabal, continued cabal from independence to now. Can you imagine the party today in government thinking of bringing the person they defeated, Goodluck Jonathan, to come and stand there on their party ticket? That tells you how much rearrangement the cabal does in order to guarantee a continuity of their corruption. The same cabal that ensured They brought in Obasanjo. You think these presidents control themselves? They brought in Obasanjo because of his military experience to strategize to control the army and to so-called introduce the democracy. Obasanjo wanted to at that time, they said no. Obasanjo fight with Atiku Bubakar and every other thing. No, they think, they selected a weak leader from the north. Yaradua, the brother of former vice president of Obasanjo when he was a military government. Yaradua was kind of a timid and these things. God knows whether they got rid of him or he was ill. This thing, and the Goodluck Jonathan came in and continued in the narrative, and some part of the cabal, a group of the cabal, the Yorubas took so much more than the Hausas this time around, and the Fulanis, they said no, now we want a Fulani to take over the cabal. They go and took a weak, dying Buhari to be sustained, and this thing there, and that continued. Now, dying Buhari have finished the 2 term, now the Yoruba cabal from Lagos now is trying to bring in Goodluck Jonathan again. A country with the potential they have, with the human resource they have, these are the people recycling themselves. And imagine what happened in 1960s, happened in these things. Imagine if something happened in Nigeria. You know, we're talking about what happened in Russia, Ukraine is affecting us. When it happened to Nigeria, we'll know what was going to affect Gambia. That's why we should think of the geopolitics. I talk about Ivory Coast. I talk about Nigeria. Let's come. What is happening in Burkina Faso? What is happening in Burkina Faso? You expect that soldier to resolve issues? You'd expect that soldier to transform the country and pass it on to democracy? No, he's going to entrench himself. And being entrenching himself and concentrating to entrenchment, the army would not be fit for purpose because of every mechanism and everything will be concentrated on his survival, not the survival of the state. And the threat that they have from the Islamists will continue to incur into their territory. Now with this geopolitical influence of Russia and France fighting over territory in West Africa, now the people been confused who's the better one, Russia or Russia or France. Now we playing us like that when the insurgents are coming and taking over. You think that's sustainable? Burkina Faso is gonna go inflate. You come to Mali. It's exactly the situation with Burkina Faso, even worse. And again, Mali is very close to us. If you understand the national security threat, if Mali gets to certain living, how it's going to impact us. From Mali, Guinea-Conakry. You think Guinea-Conakry is going to be anything different? They are going in the same route. Now, who is left? Guinea-Bissau. You have seen what's happened in Guinea-Bissau. Now Guinea-Bissau is asking ECOMIC to go there. Why do they asking ECOMIC to go there? Because of the corruption and the entrainment program of a scammer called so-called General. You see how they invented a coup, so-called coup in January and everything else, the narco state and everything else. That's a country next to us. You see, how many West African countries did I call up here? And we are next. Everything, let's move on. Now, Senegal, which we have been hopeful. We all have seen the dictatorship Macky Sall is trying to bring to Senegal. The length Macky Sall is going, trying to entrench himself. The third time. Now, where's hope? If Macky Sall can dare transform himself with Senegalese, the sophistication of Senegalese intelligentsia, Macky Sall daring to go, tells you how much corruption can affect a man. Because Macky Sall knew all the other realities of Senegal. Because those realities brought him where he is. Macky Sall, as Senegal was, Macky Sall would have dare not ever think of being a president. People who understand the Senegalese political history will tell you why it took Ablaye Wade this long. because of the cabal in Senegal. But something interesting happened. This cabal went on, and it was unsustainable after Diouf, because they never had anything else. And because of generations, you see, we have to understand the evolution of human beings. We have to understand the evolution of citizens. And because of the evolution of human beings, generations that grew up not under Senghor, the 40% or over 40% of the population that were eligible to vote, grew up under Abdou Diouf. This is what informed the change for WADA to be successful. If it all rests onto the generation that remembered colonization, the generation that remembered Senghor and the beginning of Abdou Diouf, they would not have changed. But a new generation was born, and that constituted 40 to 60% of the Senegalese population, voter population, sorry. And that brought Ablaye Wade. Ablaye Wade tried to toy with that. And not only that, trying to inflict an influence into the civil society, and trying to have a direct stake and control. Ablaye Wade, who was never religious, just turned to be a Murid because of the militants, and the effectiveness, influence of the Muridian movement. And his cabal of young, you see, he have a cabal of young. The Samuel Sars and let's go on, Baldes and let's go on. And because he was generous with the state resources and creating an enabling environment for them to implode in wealth, they thought they have it. They got this. They got this. We can undermine the institutions. They failed. Because of what? Within that time, what opened up was social media. What opened was communication. And energetic civil society movements. And that we credit to Yanamar. That Yanamar became the catalyst. That Yanamar just came out from nowhere. And that Yanamar make it possible for Macky Sall to be a president. The most influentials from the northern part of Senegal have not even contemplated. The most influential prime ministers never contemplated to become, because they know their limitations, because it was based on the environment they were operating. They never complained. That's why you have the two-party state. And WADA was just struggling there. And WADA forcing change because of the generational factor. And Ablaye Wade thought that he can reposition himself and use wealth to corrupt the entire system in order to control the narrative. He failed. Because the radical youths came out and what made him even more fail was that he was trying to coronate his own son. This Senegalese intelligence would not accept that. For a third time. He successfully ran for a third time because manipulation of the constitution. Now the same boo-boo, Macky Sall, stupid enough to think that he can, what has been denied Ablaye Wade, he can have. He forget that he only became because of the people. Now he went on to do his own. He went on the same thing, constitutional amendments, in order to justify at that time. Went on to fight everybody else. Even within his own party or his coalition, anybody who is to be anything would be out. He's only yes men and women. And corrupt the institutions and everything else. Try to corrupt the civil society and everything else. The opposition, he went and disseminated only technically one person to stand, and he's after that one, Sonko. But because of the stakes now, he is dying, not only because of he want to enter himself for to protect himself and his family, because he have created a precedent, and that precedent was prosecuting the son of the president he succeeded. Now his brother is going to be prosecuted, or he himself will be prosecuted, because one thing too he did was the amount of imprisonment and damage he have done against other opponents. Senghor used to compromise certain ways and have a way of dealing with Ablaye, and few weeks or almost months. Abdou Diouf the same thing, few weeks, months, and so, and released. But never went all out after them to damage them. But he was so brutal, ruthless. He wanted to damage everybody. Now he's scared of what these people are going to do. That's not the only thing. Now again, this is where we always have to think of what the imperialists do in order to. Now the cabal that controls him and the imperialist leaders that control him fail to have a successor. There's another Sal, a former minister that resigned from his government. We'll talk about that some other time. I forgot his name. He might, look, he's still free, but they have never think about a successor. Now things have got to a level they want to maintain, and they are going at any length to try to force this, and this is destabilizing Senegal. Now with the problem with Ukraine, Russia, the supplies to Germany and Europe for natural gas have just brought Senegal to prominence. Multi-billion possibilities for Senegal. And you know, once you have that potential as geostrategic influence onto the European Union, that says something else. Now, Macky Sall is trying to do something, trying to come out and say that his projects are not finished. Just imagine now, this want to tell Senegalese that my projects are not finished, I need to continue. You think Senegalese would buy that? They will resist. Not only that, now he's trying to tempt every politician to say all politicians are the same. Rather just leave it, let me continue. No, Senegalese are not going to accept that. But this is a risk in Senegal. And yes, I'll tell you this, the Senegalese security sector are very professional. Senegalese civil society are very effective. And the civil society, not only the formal ones we know, but the informal, that we call it informal, this religious, be the Catholic, be the Murid, Tijanias, these things, they are very effective in bringing things to order. They have a lot of things going for them. But we still will not underestimate the risk because of where Macky Sall wants to go, and the risk because of the potentials the Senegals have now, and what interest this imperial colonies have on this. We have to be very careful, Gambia. Now, these are all realities. Now, imagine who guarantee our peace more than Senegal. Because if, apart from us guarantee our peace, if things fall apart due to many aspects, nature of our relationship, our geographical, anything else, cultural and everything, we are tied together. If those people are at threat, Guinea-Bissau is at threat, Guinea-Conakry is at threat, other countries are at threat. What is our chances? These are things we have to comprehend. This is the thing we have to remember. And why am I saying this? Is for us to understand the fragility of our state and the fragility of our environment, so that Gambians would move away from this deceit and focus on to make sure we use the power we have to make this reality and make sure this document is implemented. And not only implemented, we go further than the limitation of this document. But entirely, what the document proposed is for good governance, and so we have that good governance and addressed, and we cannot have the good governance without addressing the victims and the past history. And if you look at this, in order, in fact, to have hope, we have to expect certain things from government, and those things are the short term, and that term is the lowest hanging fruits. just within government reach for government to effect. And this, again, I'll call on civil society, I'll call on the people, I'll call on the politicians to call it out. Politicians should start to tell government that within a week we expect these things to happen. Within 2 weeks we expect it. We have to give them a timeline. We have to make sure we give them a time. We have to make sure we see it being implemented. That's the only way we will implement it. We cannot say, oh, the government will not implement it and go away. Look, that's what the government wants. Us to go away, us to be distracted, so that they will not implement it. But because they don't know better, if this is not implemented, Gambia will not be no more. That's what I'm saying. And I believe. Then it's to our interest, any Gambian that have interest. We might have our difference in political party, different in religion, or difference in everything. One thing we have in common and should have in common is the Gambia. The interest of the Gambia is to our interest. Then it should not be about politics of differences. Politics, common interests. The lowest for hanging fruits, let's put it this way. The people in active service should not take a week. And you see, these things I'm saying should have even been thought of from the planning when they were creating this TRRC. A strategy, a legal strategy should have been prepared. Where do they want this to go? What outcome do they want this? Tell you, they will not even prepare for all this. The time they say this, I'll tell you the next day, actions will be there. That's why we have to be prepared. These people are not ready to implement, but we can make them to implement. The lowest hanging fruit will be active people in active service. Some of these people should have been even suspended the minute they went and testified. The minute they went and testified, the TRRC, they literally admitted. And in any corporate governance, those people will be suspended. Even the minute they were invited, in fact, some corporate governance would just say suspension and the minute you testify, you come in and you're out of the service. The people in corporate governance will tell you that's what will happen. Not only that, some of these people were reinstated from the directive of the president. Jesus was reinstated because of the directive of the president, the interior minister, Sonko. Why? Because he wants the service of Jesus. We all know the service of Jesus to enable a dictatorship. That's what he wanted. Then, what we are saying that these things were not done, what we say now, it should be done now. It could have been done before. Now let it be done now. People who active service should be out. And when this happens, what it does is people within service now will go, oh, I have to be within, because they all know the limits of my service rules to do something effective, to protect the integrity of the services, to serve my nation, and to make sure I don't infringe the rights of others. That's the lesson. That's how the never again should not happen. That's why I said we have not done it. That's why we keep on saying it. PIU and other people abusing their power. People within the services should be dealt with. And the next would be the people on the ground, already who are out of the services, or these things. An immediate action should be taken to make sure they are not flight. They will not leave the country. They are not flight to try to decide. Let them address that. Straight away, there's something to be dealt with. They needed to be arrested. They needed to be make sure they sign a bond or whatever it is, or if they are really flight risk, to keep them away. That should be done. And this is the thing the politicians, civil society, citizens should be asking for. Not to say optimistic or lack of optimism. We need action. We should need to advocate these things. The other one is to use the policy of the universal the universal jurisdiction. I'll tell you, Trial International. I happen to be part of people they consulted or keep on consulting in the process of trying to get a evidence to prosecute people outside the country. And they'll tell you, when I talk to them, and suggested certain things or talk about certain things, and they said, look, we are just surprised. Every Gambian that we spoke to, activists and everything else, the interest they show in these cases, or the zeal, the enthusiasm to see something done, we are not receiving the same thing as from the government. The government are not. If it was not for activists, Usman Sonko would have been. Yeah, I'll tell you today. I was one of the first Usman Sonko contacted when he left the country. I was one of the first. I could not even believe it was him. They should use it. This is Peter Singate, Edward Singate. I'll tell you, many other people outside, something job somewhere else. I mean, many people outside, they already started doing that. They arrested by law, they arrested someone in America, they arrested someone, Sonko, and others. Now, another thing, we expect government to expedite this. They use the process, the protocols, to write to where the government it is, and these are people within your jurisdiction. Now, even help us deal with this, and that will help. Now, people will think of, oh, I cannot commit crimes, these crimes, and run away. You see, this is again the never again position. Now, and again, if these people are being arrested and prosecuted, I'll tell you, they will serve as witness for the big people that we need in front. Fiajam himself. These people will have interest. And I'll say, let me put this position. Arresting. Hello? Hello, Tafa? Yeah, Nabala, I'm going to make a live program. Okay. The arrest of Bailo. I actually, when Trial International spoke to me, I gave them Bailo's name. I said, I think it's someone that would cooperate, that you will need his cooperation, and I think would be effective. Unfortunately, they said to me, oh, they tried Bailo, would not talk to them. I reached out to Bailo, and I said to Bailo, I think this is to your interest to speak to these people. If not, you'll be picked up. Speak to them and be a star witness. I said, it's to your interest. And I said, if you want, I can assist. I have friends who are lawyers. They will put you through so that you will, able to insulate yourself in areas that you needed insulation. I said, I can do that. He refuses. Why? Because I believe Bailo was someone who contributed immensely in the dictatorship being taken out. And his coming out, many people came out, but they never tell us exactly what went on. Bailo told us exactly what he participated in. Nobody forced him. He could have just melted away and do his thing. He told us what other things that he knew about and how it, and everything he said came out true at the TRRC. All the people he accused to be present, and at times he said, no, that person was not even present. And when it comes to the TRRC, those people were not present because we had similar narrative. But his narrative was clearer than anything else. He have already said this. It was to his interest to be a star witness. I don't know why or what got to him, he refused. Now, he is arrested, and I hope he will turn out to be a star witness. But I think he can still be used. And I tell you, Bailo and others could have been, we'll get to that. That's my position. I think we need this thing to happen. And now the government is within government reach. To reach out to the governments that these people are under jurisdiction on, even some people are in Senegal, still in Senegal. Some people are in Guinea-Conakry. Some people are in Guinea-Bissau. They know about this. Government know about this. We need these things, and these are the things we should advocate for and see that happen. And the next thing is we have to make sure we advocate and see the timeline. building a legal strategy should have happened before. Now, if it did not happen, we should ask questions and make sure we see that strategy happen. And the other part is about this reparation. Again, let us not look. We have already seen the lobbying for the so-called commission for reparation. They are already lobbying to be selected. Again, that is not about building commissions. Our commission for reparation, commission for this, again, no. I think we don't even need that. They are lobbying, and after what will happen is the money will just go on paying their operational costs. The victims are identified. The victim center have a role to play in this, and make sure the monies that should go to the victims should go to victims. And let's start with this. And which is, I'm still amazed. I've not even looked at that. My friend said to me, do you know that at the bottom of the report, the white paper, the government is talking about the 50 million. And the victim center too. I don't know why the victim center is not following this. That money should be 100 million. Senegal give us 50 million. Batambedu had that 50 million. Batambedu put that 50 million in a special account for President Barrow. You see, Batambedu helped President Barrow to steal 50 million that was given by Senegal for the to help support the reparations. And this is a fact. I still have that evidence where Batambedu came to the House of Parliament to admit that he took the 50 million from Senegal and put it in a special account for Barrow. I know people will be amazed. Oh, how can that be true? It's true. And whoever interested, I can share that with them again. I've shared it many times. I talked about this many times, but the journalist seems not to be interested, the victim center seems not to be interested, and Gambian seems not to be interested. 50 million given by Senegal, where it is. The 50 million in the white paper is the 50 million government have given from the Jammeh's proceeds. Now, where's the 50 million from Senegal? Now, if we are not vigilant, you think this government would do anything different for reparation? And this should have happened. Now, the Jammeh's proceeds from Jammeh's properties should go to the victims, or something to do with reparation. What I mean by something to do with reparation and reconciliation, some of the properties should have been used for community use. Some of the properties in Banjul could have been used as youth centers. Some of the properties in Foni could have been used as community farms. Some of the properties in Badibu or wherever it is could be used for community projects. That's the way it should be. Now, the house in Potomac, the victim center should make this interest, and politicians should make this interest, civil society should make the interest to say that the proceeds from this house should go to the victims. This is something, these are the kind of things we expect to be done. We need to go for these assets, and we need to make sure these things are, we get them. And that's why I said the importance of the victim center, the people, politicians, and civil society. These things have to happen. I have, I've just did a post. Let me rely on this post to complete this program. Will be easier to guide me. I have seen this argument, and when the white paper came out, the reaction, we can tell that, or people were surprised, or that the governments have agreed on 90-something percent, 5% of it, or something like that, or 2%, 3%, not, or that's not a big deal. Understand? Overall, that's not bad because of the expectation of people. But we're going to discuss that. And I've seen a legal argument from Assis Bensouda saying that the government don't have a choice. They have to implement the recommendations. They don't have a choice. which I disagree. I don't have a legal background, which I disagree. But I have seen people with legal background or consulted people with legal background that disagree with Assis Bensouda's narrative that government don't have a right or government cannot ignore. Legally, government can do that legally. What government cannot get away with is when people stand up to them. That's where I differ, and I'll explain. And Pasambu, I wrote an article, and Pasambu's, this same position that no. And let me try and read Pasambu's article to see if I can have both. Let me try to get Assis one first to do it justice. Assis Bensouda said, too important to get so wrong. Government of the Gambia does not have the powers to accept or reject TRRC recommendation. TRRC was not a constitution of inquiry. Inquiry. It was a corporate body established by status, and the power of government of the Gambia was very clear. Government of the Gambia was only to provide implementation plan, which I completely disagree. And the first thing is for him to say that the TRRC was not a commission of inquiry. The act of parliament that empowered the body was clear that it's a commission of inquiry. It's not a court of law. And the TRRC have keep on making that they are not a court of law. They are not under the judiciary, in a sense. They are under the executive. And I'll explain my point in that. But let me get to Pasambu's position. Because I want to put the arguments of lawyers, then I bring my argument of as a layperson. Okay. Pasambu wrote, number one, rejection of recommendation regarding NIA DG SSO. No, not that one. Okay. Having one. Okay, Pasambu said failure to accept advance recommendation regarding ex-IGP Yankuba Sonko. He said the reason advance or not upholding the TRRC recommendations are weak. If Sonko had evidence which he believed exonerated him, he should have shared it when he was invited to give statement. Oh no, I'm sorry guys, I cannot just. I read it definitely somewhere about his argument. Yeah, I read it somewhere. I'll find it to share it again. But my position is here against what lawyer Assis Bensouda have said. That's why the reason I'm not a fan of commission of inquiries. These commission of inquiries are an avenue, an instrument, or a mechanism under the position of government to use, the executive to use, in order to take things away from the judiciary for them to manage, so that they can have overall control over the outcome of the issue. Now, what I mean by this is things that could have gone straight to the judiciary and the judiciary rule over them, then the executive will not have any powers, because the judiciary is independent of the executive. And once the judiciary make a ruling, it becomes binding, and only a higher court can take that away. There's no person on earth who can take that away. The president cannot, or anybody else, have to be dealt with by judicial means. Now, that's why the executive like using so-called commissions. Commissions are inquiry. Commissions are investigation. It's another word for investigation. And already investigations powers are within many institutions. Many institutions have investigation powers. Just as we have within the executive, we have the AG chambers. They have investigation powers. The police have investigation powers. I mean, you can constitute a body and give them powers to investigate, and this is what the Commission of Inquiry is. Now, you constitute it and take it to Parliament and give them powers. And these powers, why you go to Parliament, is to now to use people's, to approve, to legitimize the body of the Commission. That's why you go to Parliament, to get a legislation to support the Commission remit, the scope, and to make them effective. Now, this, you give them certain powers to sit as a court, but they are not a court. I know it might sound a bit worrying because their judgment or their recommendation is not a judgment. It's just a recommendation. Now, once someone gives you a task and asks you to deliver a recommendation for them, what the person is telling you that, look, I give you a job, a recommendation is up to me. You are a client. Now what the executive does is to create a client for them to bring a report. And that report, now they can examine, they can implement or fail to implement. This is where the people come in. It's only the people who can make the government not refuse to implement a white paper. Because the people can ask that, call out a mandate. Look, you cannot spend our money, this much money, into a decision-making forum and decided to disregard it. We are not going to accept that waste. And you cannot make up a body to consult us, to engage us, for us to participate and give our blessings for you to disregard it. We are your boss. We are the boss of the executive. We want you to implement it. You're going to implement it. This is where the difference is. This is what my beliefs are. And Pasamo have shared the same thing, and others have shared the same thing. I did consult on legal because I was surprised that ASIS came with this argument. And I have seen people share the argument. I know we always want to hold government to account, to force government, no. But we have to be, when we're educating people, we have to be factual. And I believe if it is a mistake, I don't believe that the government don't have right to ignore the recommendations. What they can do it, what we can do is to force them to do it. Now, let's come to the report, my post, and to complete this program in detail. I wrote a post on the truth for the transitional justice, and these are my position on this transitional justice, because a friend, Babukar Sise, asked for my opinion, and he published that opinion on the monitorgambia.com. The monitorgambia.com. The opinion is there. He asked for my opinion. I said the truth for the document. The truth is TRRC. The truth is for documentation of historic crimes. The reconciliation between victims and those that offended them, and the reparation to be awarded to victims of 22 years of dictatorship. But will not be achieved. We will not be achieve the objectives of justice without the most responsible being taken to trial. My point is here. You can see that deliberately the word justice was not part of the TRRC. They said TRRC, transitional truth, reconciliation, reparation, commission. No justice. Now, my argument is trying to put the justice in front of it, because it's the most important part of everything. These other parts, the truth is very important. In order to have a historic records of what have transpired, then we use that truth in order to educate people and to understand what happened, and to make sure we avoid it happening again. The reconciliation, I said, between victims and those they have offended. This is again where I said our case from Liberia and South Africa and all the other countries are different. These are people. It was not an ethnic group against an ethnic group, was not a region against a region, was not a political party against a political party. Now, the reconciliation is between the state and the people, between people that physically or directly took part in causing the crimes to reconcile. What I mean between the state and the people. Everything Yahya Jammeh did it in the name of the state. Now the state needs a reconciliation, and the state, in order the state to reconcile, is to try to show us that they are different from what they inherited. That's one. Two, the state to go out there to the powers that the state have used in order to abuse, to be taken out. All those bad laws, and start with the constitution that Yahya Jammeh have amended so much that it serves one purpose only, to get rid of. That's another reconciliation the state should do. The others is the resources of the people that the state have taken. The things have happened in Sanyang, these things have happened in Gunjur, Katong, everywhere else. Should not have happened again. They should go and do things differently. That's the reconciliation. People to benefit from the resources within their means. People to benefit from their environment, not their environment to be polluted, their environment to be destroyed. People to make sure they have the land around them used sustainably. This is what the reconciliation is for government to the people, the state to the people. The human rights. The reconciliation is the reforms of the institutions that enabled the dictatorship and caused the harm onto the people. The institutions, the prisons and everything to be rehabilitated and fit for purpose. That's what we expect. Now, the people themselves that did this, they have to go through the justice in order they can come out and ask for forgiveness. That's the only way. It can never be genuine if it is just forgive and forgive. It's never true. The victims ask for justice. Justice should happen in order for that reconciliation to happen. In the absence of justice, reconciliation cannot happen. And the truth will mean nothing. The document would mean nothing. That was my first approach on the issue. That's why I said the truth for the documentation of historic crimes, the reconciliation between victims and those that offended them, and the reparation to be awarded to victims of 22 years of dictatorship will not achieve the objective of justice without the most responsible being taken to trial. This thing have to happen. I went on to explain. Justice cannot be served without accountability, and failure to take people to trial and punish them for their wrongs will foster impunity. Justice cannot happen without accountability. We call for justice. What we're calling for is accountability. And this is where it comes. That's why the accountability is important on hold of the government to do things differently. That's why accountability is important, to take things through the legal, judicious means in order to bring an outcome that people will satisfy. If we can take someone to trial, does not mean that we're going to, nobody is calling for death penalty. Even though people who killed, we are not calling for death penalty for them to kill. We are not even calling for them to this. We're leaving it to the courts to use what they're empowered with to decide. They might decide that this person have done this. Now the person is found guilty for doing this, but due to the circumstances that the person have gone through, now we're just going to sentence them 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, or some of them might even be free or just suspended sentence or whatever. But this would give satisfaction to the victims to understand that justice has been served, and the embarrassment and anything that comes to it is part of the punishment. Punishment is not only to beat, punishment is not to incarcerate, punishment is to expose, to put it through the justice system and people from land on it. And what does that do? Impunity. I continue to say, justice cannot be served without accountability, and failure to take people to trial and punish them for their wrongs will foster impunity. That's what we have to avoid. In the beginning, I've explained this impunity. Because of the Jani Commission disregarded impunity for corruption, we have said it. Because of the lack of reforms to fight corruption, mechanisms introduced to fight corruption, we see the impunity for corruption and the level corruption is. Because of the lack of security reforms, we see the impunity that occurred, and now we see the behavior of the security sector, especially the PIU, the way they've been behaving. Because of the lack of land reforms and the impunity that created the land grabbers. Today we have seen our Christian families, their secret place of worship have been intruded and been disturbed because of the same impunity. And what causes this impunity? The agenda for the corrupt cabal, Barrow and people around him. Because they are the people benefiting from this injustice. The PIU are doing their job for them to make people fear or to protect them to do what they want to do. Today, after the next minute, if the Christians go to Kunkuja Marhema, PIU will be there to throw them out. Why? Because land grabbing, who benefit more are these cabal themselves. From Barrow going onwards, his business partners and others. And once impunity is there, where it's going to be, there's no justice. And where there's no justice, there cannot be peace and there will be destabilization. I move on here. I said justice cannot be served. I move on to say, which goes against the Rome status of International Criminal Court that the Gambia is a signature. We are signatory. The reason we have the Internal Criminal Court, the ICCC, is to avoid impunity. States crimes to commit, and states will not go out to investigate and prosecute. If that happens, and obviously the ICC have a threshold. If the crime have met the threshold, they will have to intervene to do the investigation and do the prosecution. But where the state take control, they don't have a business in that. They will leave the state to be effectively to deliver. And we are a signature to this, and we expect them to avoid creating impunity. I continue to say the victims need to be listened to and their rights be respected by bringing those that cause them harm and pain to justice to help their healing process for justifiable forgiveness in fostering reconciliation. For the pain inflicted on these victims, nobody can make them forgive, but we have to listen to them. And what they have said under the umbrella of the Victim Center is they want justice, and justice then should be served. As I said, we are collective victims, but there are victims who are direct victims, and these people have to listen to and to ensure that what they ask for is given and justice is served in order for them to be able to start to heal and able to forgive and forgive genuinely. I know some politicians and individuals have come out, to try to show been above something, or I forgive, I forget. That's a lie. I tell you, most of these people are liars because they have contradicted themselves again. After a few times, they come say, okay, yeah, I made this, yeah, I made that. They want this thing. They are saying that for political reasons. And that is very unfair to the victims. If you think you have forgiven, keep it with you. If you think you have forgotten, keep it with you. But this is something that we cannot forget. Forgive is the person who is being offended directly to forgive. I move on to say, we had the TRRC here. It was not everyone's choice of proceedings or process for justice. It was not mine. TRRC was not my choice of justice. Not my, but end of the day, we work what we have. What would have been my choice? As I said, bylaw revelations, what we have had mainly from freedom and other mediums, was enough for government to use to investigate and take these people to trial, and then the other things can follow. Reparation can be dealt with differently. That was my argument. And it's important to note that even the Germans decided to use the revelations that bylaw had made at Freedom newspaper in order to launch their investigation and to put that through trials. Why could we not have done that? a country that the witnesses are, the process we went through all in the TRRC, end up coming back to doing the same thing again. Now we are going to try to build a case in order to go to trial. Now, this is where the skepticism is. If they cannot deal with the solo ascendant thing, are they going to deal with the rest? But I'll tell you now, it's for the will of the people to force that we'll talk about that. This was my reason that we could have done this, if there was a political will. The TRRC was a distraction for me, a diversion. The historic report could have been captured, the reparation could have been dealt with, reconciliation could have come after. But the criminal proceedings would have gone through. And during the criminal proceedings, what could have happened is where we could, once they found guilty and the victims come and give their victim impact statements, then the people can ask for forgiveness and reconciliation happen from there on. This is my position. Now, an inquiry of such, which could have been detailed and even more effective, was to look at what caused us to went through the 22 years of dictatorship, what kept us in the dictatorship for 22 years. This is an area we have not covered. If we had an inquiry based on this, that inquiry would not have taken 6 months, 3 months max. And the people this thing on this would have give us a comprehensive report that we'll need in order to fight forward, to avoid this happening again. What I said, what led us, then we could have diagnosed the failings we had since independence, which led us especially towards going to in the early 90s. Would have diagnosed that. The historic report would have been more accurate than just what happened to 2022. We have not touched on what really led us. Let me move on from there on. I said some wanted a quick and most effective delivery of justice by utilizing the available information already within public domain and build up a legal strategy to bring all the perpetrators of serious crime to justice. Now, we are hearing the Justice Minister say that, oh, now we are going to build a legal strategy. A legal strategy should have been built when they were thinking of the TRRC. And I tell you, it's not that difficult. You'll be surprised. I'll give an example. You know, when the junglers were arrested, they all give cautionary statements. And those cautionary statements alone, because at that time, the momentum, most of these people were willing to cooperate, were enough to take them to trial. And when the TRRC came with their investigations, in fact, when these people went to the TRRC, some of them were still refusing to tell the facts. They had to use the cautionary statement they were given at the beginning to put it to them. But you said this during your cautionary statement. You said this in your cautionary statement. Let's move from there. Over time, we are now moving towards delivering the justice that most of the victims were yearning for. We took what we had to work with. The TRRC, it delivers a historic report with recommendations which is overall accepted by victims and the general public, and with reservation or displeasure in some quarters. Now, this is what we have. After the end of everything now, we accepted the TRRC. That's what we have to work with. And they went and had their report, which is delivered, and we accepted the report and reserved some reservations in some quarters, but overall it was accepted. And from the report, the government produced a white paper indicating their commitment to adopt almost all the recommendations except about 2 exceptions. Now again, from that report, the government went on to develop a white paper and promises to implement almost 95% or so of the report, except 2 exceptions. The white paper is seen as progressive, but some people still have reservations on the political will of the government to implement the proposals, which is very fair. Now, there are 2 exceptions. Let's talk about some of the exceptions. I think there are more than 2. I don't know where the 2 came from. I think it's more than 2. Let's look at this. And one of those is Mr. Souls. Soul is the DG of SIS. Now, this is why people are suspicious. We all know that Barrow have a vested interest to protect Soul. Without taking time on this, Soul is the spy master. Spy masters keep the secrets of the state. Spy masters keep the secrets of the executive. And people should remember, when Soul did his testimony at the TRRC, Barrow himself went to Soul's house to visit him after finishing his 3 days marathon of delivery. What did that tell you? You see, it's not a surprise. I don't know why governments get surprised or dismayed with things. It's there in our eyes. But look, Soul have done a lot. Soul knows a lot for Barrow. That's what spy masters do. He doesn't want to lose the spy master. He wants to keep the spy master. That's why he doesn't want this recommendation. That's period. That's what it is. The argument that the state have given that this crime committed by Soul, once the government have agreed that he have committed a crime, in fact, then Soul would have lost his position the minute he have committed that crime, or it have been revealed that he committed a crime. He would have lost his position. You see, then the government argument doesn't stand. Now, even the crime he have committed, no, I don't think it's out of the scope of the TRRC. No, if in fact infringe the act of the TRRC, obstruction of justice. It's obstructed the proceedings of the TRRC, then the TRRC have a right to do a recommendation on him. The TRRC have right to do a recommendation on him. Now again, if the state didn't want to implement, as I said, the people can get the state to implement. Now that is up to our politicians, civil society, and us the people. The government will should be, we are the one to force the government to have the will. We are the boss. We give government a mandate. We give government the responsibility. We give them the enabling environment. We should give them an enabling environment to do the right thing. If they refuse, we force them out. Period. That's democracy. Now, what the government did was, they put Sonko part of it. You know why? Sonko argument doesn't stand. Sonko was given enough time. And we all know, he in the proceeding he lied. He tried to lie, he tried to cover up. But it was proven by other witnesses that came, that that's what he did. He doesn't have the integrity to hold a position in public office. The commission was right. But you see, Sonko has to be added in. Because if you deny only Soul, will be obvious. Now add Sonko in it. Sonko is already retired. Sonko is over 60. Unless government want to give him a political position in the diplomatic commission mission, or he shouldn't be considered. But they will use Sonko to make their point. Come on. There is another point. The Samsar issue. Samsar have raised a point. And the government came out and said this. Let me read what the government said. The government said that they are dismayed. They first said that Samsar was not given the opportunity to testify. 1. 2, they continued and made an argument for Samsar. Because this argument was Samsar argument throughout, that I'm not given opportunity to come and testify. Yes, this TRRC is not right. Even they have not investigated the issue about Farafenye when 6 young soldiers were brutally killed. This is Samsar argument. Now this government came and verbatimly produced exactly, either Samsar wrote it for them, or they went and plagiarized what Samsar wrote and put it in their report, in their white paper. But my argument here against Samsar is this. Samsar is about talking the truth. Samsar is known to be a liar. Samsar is known to be a certified liar, a pathological liar. And this is not an insult. Samsar himself admitted. Yaya Jammeh called him and he admitted. He wrote a book. People paid for that book. And he turned around to say that the book was a lie when he presented that book as a fact. And people know that it was a fact. Because people, the same version people knew. He came out and denied it completely. He's not a reliable witness. And Samsar had been hurt. TRRC, they might not officially contact him, but his contribution, Samsar's contribution have been hurt. Then I don't think that Samsar was denied a voice or a representation. And what was testified, and there's nothing Samsar has said that have changed the outcome of that investigation. Now let's come to where I think that the government have gone even further than that to defend Samsar. And I know Ahmad Ba and Musa Drame were lobbied by Samsar, and they lobbied for this position in the white paper. They lobbied for this position in the white paper. I can swear to that. Samsar, for fact, he lobbied Musa Drame, Ahmad Ba, and they said, and Sankare for that matter. At Sankare, these three lobbied for this position. This reaction. Now, Samsar said something. And this was what on the paper. They said, okay, the 6 soldiers brutally killed. Farafenye and others. Fine. But Samsar was available. Samsar was part of the senior command when this happened. And it was during the investigation. That's why Samsar was found wanting for torturing one of the rebels. I completely against what the rebels did. And I am happy that they were arrested and they were put through the justice system. What I was not agreed about is their maltreatment. And justice was served that they were in prison. That case was dealt with. And that case was not the state against the people. That was not someone else's human right being infringed. No, that was an insurgency that happened. Rebels came and attacked against the state. And the state was incapable to arrest the situation and investigate and deal with this. Some people were even extradited from Senegal and put on trial. Another person landed in the Gambia. After a few years, he was put on, arrested and put to trial. One. That's one. I spoke to someone, he tried to bring a justification, which he is right to say. What I don't have, what I have problem is the state representing Samsar's interests. Because here, it's not a valid, point. I'll bring this out. Now, the citizens that are killed, the soldiers that are killed in duty or on duty, were not dealt with right. This is the standards. Standards to be upheld. A coroner report should have been established. The causes of what caused their death, was the death avoidable, and after when they died, what happened to their family, whether reparations were paid to their family or whatever. That should have happened. And that too, the failure was the government in charge. Yeah, you can make an argument and say, oh, that should have been brought in. But I don't see why that is linked to Samsar. Why that is linked to Samsar. I think the commission, the TRRC could have been helped on this separately. But once you put it with the agreement of Samsar, it means that you are taking Samsar's position. And the only reason the government is taking Samsar's position because Samsar have been a mouthpiece of this government. Even though the same Samsar was the mouthpiece of the dictatorship that plunged us into an impasse, and being continue to be the mouthpiece of, even when we were in the impasse, trying to galvanize the soldiers, telling Gambians that they will fight the economic and blood will set in. He was campaigning. He did everything. He went on every medium, Al Jazeera, Senegalese, everything, to as the spokesperson. And this government, again, these are the people they use. And this is the reason why people are skeptical of what this government will is. That's why it's important to take this, because it's on the white paper. They went on to the extent of appeasing Samsar, and in order to put it in the white paper. What are they afraid of? No. What they want is to continue to have the people like Samsar within our midst. A 70-year-old man. To continue to act like a child, but as a dangerous, dubious child. To continue to attack victims, the feelings of victims, to continue to divide the country. He doesn't believe in anything. All he just wants his demands to be coming in from one cause to another. Everything is from inconsistency. Yaya Jammeh today, not Yaya Jammeh today, this here today. That's all they do because of what they want. The other thing is, I agree that the commission could have been held for this, but not on the Farafenni. Why did, if the government was meant, this was not dictated by Samsar, Samsar did not talk about Khartoum. Samsar did not talk about what happened at Khartoum. No. Why didn't Samsar talk about the soldiers that were killed, police officers and others killed at Khartoum, when Khartoum camp was attacked? Why they did not talk of an inquest or whatever, a coroner report or repatriation for those people? You see, this government, this is why people don't trust them. Because it's just a representative of APRC. Just as we see Sidi Njai, Fabakary. The only reason we saw Sidi Njai is Fabakary could not go to the white paper this thing that day. Because he said that he's against the TRRC. He's against this thing, and he's our speaker. Now the speaker and deputy speaker are against this white paper. Let them come and say that they're in for the white paper. And let we see them deal with the white paper in a manner that will encourage us that they are in for it. This is where we Gambians should be looking at. The position of Samsar is hypocritical. He just brought Samsar only concern about the victims is because of he want to use it to insulate himself, to distract us from the malpractice that he have done. Samsar was a very senior army officer then, and he have influence. Why didn't he make sure that reparations and care and everything that was meant to, that was his responsibility. He was senior staff, his responsibility to make sure that happened. No, we saw him jumping all over the place to impress Yaya Jammeh. That impression of to impress Yaya Jammeh after Yaya Jammeh incarcerated him, made to him to lose his senses, to eat his feces. In mile 2, he came out and worshipped Yaya Jammeh. And to go to the extent of torturing a citizen, regardless what that citizen have done. It's against our laws. It's against human dignity. And that's the person that this government went and championed on our white people. That's what this perspective is. There are so many instances that we could have looked at. No. If it is to hold TRRC, let's look at all those things. And when the TRRC was on, why the government did not were consulted? Did they ever raise it with the TRRC to look into it? It's hypocritical. Because Dawda Jallow, Sankare, Ahmad Ba, Musa Drame, they are all influenced by Samsar. Because he's a mouthpiece. Dawda Jallow don't want Samsar to attack him on papers. That was the case. The other point is about the judges, calling the judges mercenary judges. I think that was a valid observation from the government. I think to TRRC that should not have made to the papers. The word mercenary judges should have been caught. I think they could have put the language very, very eloquently and address it. And that I think that what was not fit for purpose. I agree with the state. That word was not professional, that was not fit for purpose. People can use it as common as they want or express themselves, but not for our a report to be sent to a government. Now, I continue from there on. Let me go back to the. I said, which read, the white paper is seen as progressive, but some people will still have reservation on the political will of the government to implement the process. The genuine worry, a genuine worry based on how the government dealt with the previous commission's recommendations and the relationships the president adopted with some of the indicted individuals and their family. Now, Gambia, we have to be very careful. This is the reason why Gambians are skeptical. The amount of APRC within the government, amount of APRC around Bako, and not only the people, but the instrument, be the constitution of the APRC that Barrow hold onto. Because Barrow hold onto it, we could have got rid of it. But he used every means to stop us. The lack of reforms that Barrow did deliberately to hold onto this APRC legacy and the APRC mechanism. That be in land reforms, that be in every other reforms. And the perpetration of corruption make people worried. The will is not there for this government to do. But again, I continue. Sharing my opinion on those giving too much credit to the state publication of white paper or doubting the sincerity of the state to implement the recommendation of the white paper may we remind ourselves that power belongs to the people, and yes, the government. Let's remember this. My point is here to remind the people that doubt the sincerity of this government, that they don't have the will, the credibility of the government and everything. Let me remind them that the government might refuse to do something, but again to remind you that the power resides with us, the people. We are the boss. We are the sovereign. Without us, there be no nation. The reason we have a nation is because we have people. We have sovereign. We don't have sovereign because we have a demarcation. The demarcation happened because of the people. Demarcation was done around the people. That's why the Constitution addressed first about the sovereignty, which is the sovereign. Now the sovereign decide what they want. The sovereign appoint a government. A government represents the sovereign. In a democracy they work for us, and we can make them do what we want. It's rest to us. I continue to say, May we remind ourselves that power belongs to the people. And yes, the country has its sovereignty, but cannot isolate herself, but has to abide by international laws and treaty it has ratified. Not only about the power of the people, but we are part of civilized nations. Whatever we call civilized nations, because we are in America and other people do. But here, generic or whatever it is, we are part of civilized nations. We are a country that would respect rule of law, should respect rule of law. The international law, treaties that we sign, we have to respect them. And we are a signatory to the status of the Rome Status. We are the signatories to the Geneva Conventions. We are signatory to a lot of international accords. It is this we should remember. We should remember this, that the state cannot just do as they wish. We have two things on our hand: us, the people power, and through international law. We if we organize ourselves and stand up, the government don't have a choice, because we have the two instruments, us and the support from the international community, to make them do what we want them to do. I continue to say, especially a state that depends solely on the goodwill of handouts and loans from international partners in these challenging times, does not have much choice or will apart from comply with the rule of the game in satisfying the giver and complying with the will of the people. The point is here today: a government that depends solely because of we are so corrupt and incompetent. We cannot rely on we don't rely on our resources, be it human and everything else, in order to be sustainable. What did we do? We steal everything that we can, and few people will have that, 1% of the population. We don't organize anything in a way that other people can be productive and build a nation. No, those people have to be dependent so that they can be politically influenced, and others can control everything else and their influence. We live in a nation that will always going for loans and borrowing unsustainably and begging in order to survive. We don't have any mechanisms, any strategy, any development means that would insulate us in time of hardships or to cushion in any impact that comes from geopolitical ramblings or anything. No. We are going to see more of that because of what is happening from Russia and others. And I said that is harming us. But even what might happen in Senegal, what might happen in Guinea-Conakry, Guinea-Bissau and others, if that happened, even would be worse for us. Then that government doesn't have much choice but to play the ball, the game of the international community. And this is the reason why, in fact, we have this white paper. 1. 2, is because of they knew that this time, difficult times, people might rise up against them. Now they are trying to manage this. Give us something that will quieten us. If we don't follow it through, they would distract us, distract the international community, or get them at the time they are distracted and they do what they want us to do. That's why we should be very wary and follow the strategy that we should develop in order to make sure they deliver. I said the promise during the campaign period was just that, as the president would say anything to be elected knowing that he can disregard the promises after retaining the executive power. We all have seen what the campaign promise was. Reconciliation, reconciliation, nothing about justice. Not interested about justice because they wanted empathy. They wanted support from the, for the government to think that the bad people would be the ones they need support from, tell you that the good people are not showing themselves up. That's why the government think that, no, we can go for the APRC vote. I'm not saying APRC people are bad, but I mean the leadership of APRC, what they represent is bad. Now they are using people for that. But then if the government can think that they can let the victims' feelings and everything out to appease these people, then we have a problem. That's where the problem is. That's why I said we have to be strategic, we have to be organized, we have to be ready and hold government to account in order that they would be willing and they will use the political will to do what they decide. But we not sanitize government in order for them to do bad. We give them an environment to do good. They did this in the campaign. We had them. The president went to Kanilai to visit the Jamaica. He did everything. Delegations were sent to different countries, different things. The president sent delegations to Guinea-Conakry, to Conde, to try to get the IMF to agree. He sent to Equatorial Guinea to try to get the IMF to agree. Went to Foni, tried everything. Went to communities, tried everything. He was not willing. He didn't have the desire. His government does not have the desire to do the right thing. Then people are right to be skeptical. What changed? But as I said, the executive will do anything, lie about anything in time of elections in order to be elected. Because once they hold on the executive power, it's so powerful. Because of people still don't understand how powerful the people are. That's why they think that the executive is powerful. Yes, we give that power to the executive. If we take that power away, the executive becomes a mere mortal. But because of we don't organize ourselves to show that power, the executive knows that what I need is just to pass this threshold again to be elected. Now I will have the command. Because once I am the executive, I have the powers to hire and fire. I have the powers to direct budgets, and even though we are to direct the budgets from the National Assembly, but what I mean to influence the budgets and everything else, people would just gravitate towards my corruption and everything. Now I'll be okay. Now I don't care. That's what they do. He did not believe in what he was saying. But knowing that he depends on aid and grants and the goodwill of the people and the thing, he will try to manipulate this. He will try to play again. And that's where it comes. I said, according to my point, I said that was the reason why former President Jammeh himself did not agree to any deal, as he was fully aware of the limitations of the president when it comes to crimes he was charged with. And there will be no leverage to force force for the president to deliver the side of the deal. Jammeh knew this. I keep on saying Jammeh knew this. That why Jammeh would not give him the comfort. Say that, okay, let's go, I support you. Jammeh don't want to be looking stupid in that, because Jammeh knows that he's not going to deliver anything. Because he knows the limitation of the president. Jammeh knows that. Now, what Jammeh knows is here. If the international community come after me, the government will have to sacrifice me. If the Gambian people come after me, the government have to sacrifice me. Then I cannot benefit from this. And if I agree on this, if I have an agreement with the with Barrow and sign and everything, what leverage do I have? I have no leverage. I have no leverage. You see, I told you the reason it broke, the negotiation broke in Guinea-Conakry under Condé. When Barrow Tangara went there and Condé told him exactly what Jammeh wants, and Tangara went back and went with Barrow to Guinea-Conakry. That was the last time he went to Guinea-Conakry and met Condé. And what Jammeh was asking for was everything to be done before elections. That a legislation to be passed to insulate him, and a lot of other things, for his assets to be returned, for a lot of things to be done. Barrow could not deliver that. Barrow could not deliver that. That's how the negotiation broke. Then Barrow went to undermine. Then when Barrow came back, he tried to force the hands of the APRC. That's when he started agree to disburse the 5 million, 3 million, whatever it is, with those vehicles to the so-called APRC executive, and for them to start their campaign and to undermine Jammeh. That's why he went and took to board some of the family members of Jammeh to visit Jammeh's house. Everything, that's how it worked out. He have never. Now, Jammeh knew the limitations. That's why he did not agree. Then by Jammeh knowing those limitations, we should know those limitations. That the power is with us. If we do the right thing, it's easy to have the international community on our back. That's why they agreed to this white paper, because they need the loans and other things from the international community, because the EU sponsored the TRRC and others. Now the people are right to be skeptical. But it's not only that we should do something. The people, civil society and politicians, to make sure we hold a strategy, and so that we force a government to adopt a strategy to implementation. And we see the lowest hanging fruits to be delivered. As I said, active people in services to be taken out now. They use the availability mechanism of the universal jurisdiction to send letters to make sure these people are picked up in their wherever they are, to go on. These are the things we expect, and the other part is for make sure the reparations, we try to start to access the money from Jammeh's proceeds to use for the victims. I continue here. I want to say instead there will be pressure coming from both domestic and international forces to get him to trial. This is what Jammeh knew. The president has chosen to reward some of the people that are accomplice in committing crimes, or gave moral support to the crimes that are committed over the years by justifying it based on technical grounds. You see, for now, the government does what they can get away with. That's like so. Oh, okay, so how can we protect so? Okay, we can protect so. Let's just use this technical term that, okay, when it happened, it was not under these things. But if he was under or not, he committed a crime, what we should do. That's what we should ask. I said, now we can hold them. If they don't want to accept what the TRRC said, we can accept what the law of the Gambia said. They have broken the law. Now, the government would do those things. They will go and give these things to Sam Sarr. Now, use technicality. They will try that. But the other ones, they cannot do it now. But doesn't mean that they will not do it later. The only thing to stop them do it later, if we hold them accountable now. And let me get to that. I said, but he cannot do the same for the people adversely mentioned and directly responsible or have higher responsibility in the crimes that are committed during the dictatorship. He cannot do that for Jai Sidi and others, Sam and other high profile. He cannot do that. Because that will be so controversial. That will mean that he will have to do it for every other one. That would be to disregard the report completely and recommendations completely. They cannot do that. They cannot afford to do that. Because what I said is here, the people would rise up. They don't want people to rise up. They want to fool people, hold them at bay. They don't want the international to sanction them, to stop them. They will have to do something. This is my point. And I continue to say, even though the president would still not want some of these people punished due to the relationship he have with them, the likes of Njai Sedi and Sana Sabali. Why do I give those two examples? These are people I definitely know have a relationship with the president. Njai Sedi is the auntie of Jigo, Sheikh Ahmed Jigo, or what? Jigo. Let's say the Jigos. This was part of the Kuntaya mafia under Jammeh. Njai Sedi was serving as the head of the Kuntaya mafia under Jammeh. Go and see the cabinet Jammeh ever had when with the influence of Njai Sedi, from the Secretary General and permanent secretaries and a lot of other things. That was and the business sector. And within the scene, there's a cabal. And Njai Sedi was part of that cabal. And this Jigo today, Jigo today is the business brain of Barrow. He is the chairman of Gum Petroleum. He is in the board of NAWEC. He is in many boards. That's Barrow have interest. But directly, he execute projects for Barrow. He do the building for Barrow. And he do transactions for Barrow. There was a time he was meant to, I don't know whether he done that or not. Because there was a time we knew about 2 properties he wanted to buy for the Barrow family in the United Kingdom. I'm not sure whether those properties were bought or not, because the person we are dealing with decided to follow the money and let us hanging. We were trailing that transaction. This Jigo, for them to indict Sedi, Vice President Sedi, Njai Sedi, is because they have to. For now, Sana Sabali, twin brother. And if anybody understands the testimony that Sana Sabali did, and if you look at the closing remark of Sana Sabali, giving credit to Ahmad Ba, I think, I'm not sure whether Ahmad Ba and who else. I think Silla Communication and few other people would tell you a lot. Tell you that the facilitation, what they try to facilitate for Sana Sabali. Sana Sabali, twin brother, is a close friend of Barrow from United Kingdom here, London. They live together, they share the bed, and they continue. And when Barrow became president, they are like, continue to be like this. You think Barrow would want that prosecuted? No. No. But they have to show Gambians that they are following the process. They have to show the international following the process. It's up to Gambians now to make sure that it's followed. Let me continue. I continue to say, even though the president would still not want some of these people punished due to the relationship he had with them, like of Njai Sedi and Sana Sabali, he has to be seen following the due process of the law and facilitating the exercise of rule of law. This does not guarantee that he will deliver the justice required. The only guarantee for justice delivery is the vigilantism from the political and civil society with the support from the international community. That's the only guarantee. Us. Civil society, politicians, and civil international community. And us, the civil society and politicians, can always use the leverage. You know, the international community are opportunists. They are opportunists. They play both sides. If we hold them to account and use that leverage, they won't have a choice, they will deliver. But if we don't, and they see the interest, their interest in looking the other way, when they are distracted, they will look the other way, and it will not happen. That's why we should not just say, oh, the international community. We have to use the leverage. We have to be organized. We have to build a strategy. It continues. I continue to say, if we get distracted, he will use the same tactics of applying delay with tactics to undermine the delivery of justice to his chosen people. If we are not organized, what he does, he will cause a delay. That's the system they've been using. Anything they use a delay. Delay. Gambians, something else will come in, Gambians will forget. Because we are not organized. If we are not organized, we will not forget. We'll treat things by priority. We'll have people divide our tasks. Some people will be concentrating on that. Others will be concentrating on that. That's what we expect from the political class. That's what we expect from civil society. I said this reminds us of the need to be vigilant, to guarantee the justice delivery for the victims and foster the fight against impunity in the rebuilding of our criminal justice system. This is not only for the TRRC or what happened 22 years ago. This is to rebuild our criminal justice system. If we fail on this, means that we will never have a criminal justice system. And the failure of criminal justice system, that's the failure of justice. Failure of justice is failure to have peace. And failure of peace, that means instability. This is how important this document is. I continue to say, in the case of Jammeh, the president has nothing to gain to warrant him to take a risk by ignoring the signed Rome status of the International Criminal Court that would sever his relationship with the international community. In the case of Jammeh, it's a low-hanging fruit for Barrow. I'll tell you that. And Barrow have realized that. And Barrow was going to betray Jammeh even though if Jammeh have endorsed him. One thing that he cannot negotiate or deliver for anybody would be Jammeh. Because it's not to his interest in any way. Even Jammeh would be a threat for him to come. If Jammeh comes back to the country, you think Jammeh is going to just be a good citizen? You'll be kidding. Barrow knows that. But now, knowing that Jammeh's crimes are of international nature, why would he want to take this thing? He doesn't need Jammeh anymore. He have everything that he wanted from Jammeh supporters. He doesn't need Jammeh. Why would he take the pain to have problems of international attraction? No. That's why I say people here wasting their time of saying that they're campaigning for Jammeh. Please go and do something better. Please stop our people that you're deceiving that Jammeh is going to be anything else or Jammeh is going to have a freedom. If you don't have it in your heart and souls to understand what Jammeh did to people, that tells us something else. If any Gambian or any person would justify or the freedom of Jammeh, that person have lost his soul. Jammeh did not spare anybody. Jammeh went against humanity. He did not spare his own family. How can we dare advocate for that person's freedom? How can we dare? Barrow knows that. Jammeh would never be free. He's already caged, and he will continue to be caged until he gets to a prison. He's already in a big prison. Now it's for Gambians to make sure that it's done swiftly. But he would go in there. But to do it swiftly for the sake of us and the victims, I said we should be proactive. I continue. The people the people, the politicians and civil society still have an important role to play in forcing the state to expedite the process for justice to prevail. As justice delayed is justice denied. Thank you very much, guys. That was the program. Thank you.